Hello sword class. We are going to be working today on some hip balancing of our sword and also on some of our side undulations. So we're going to get started with our warm-up. Deep breath, inhale and exhale. Inhale and twisting to the corner, exhale. Back to center and exhaling to the other side. Good. One last time. Back to center and exhale. Good. Reaching one arm over and other side. To the corner and other side. Good. Coming down to flat back. And reaching all the way down. Bend the knees, gently shake the head yes and no. And roll up. Shoulders up and back and down, nice and big. Forward. And reverse. Good. Arms up into temple. And we're relaxing our head onto the side of the arm. The hands to lift the head, switching to the other side. Good, and reaching up to the ceiling, all the way through the fingertips, bending into that same knee. And switch. 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 And one more time. And other side. Good. Right arm across. And reaching back. Other side. And across. Good. Hips or feet are a little bit further than hip width apart, and relaxing to the right and left. Good. Elbows nice and lifted, wrists are up, trying to keep that nice straight line across. Good. And circle, we're adding in that snake arm if we're feeling comfortable with it. Lifting the elbow as the hip rolls through. And pause. We're going to reverse the direction. One more time. Good. And we're going to slide the feet in together, smaller circle. Reverse the direction. Good. Feet into the T, knees nice and bent, hip is out. We're leaning away till we feel that stretched on the side of our leg. And then twisting the upper body to look into the upper corner. Shoulders are back and down, chin is lifted. Good. Switching to the other side, switching the feet. Nice and bent knee, hip is out, chest is open, shoulders down, chin lifted. Back to center, sliding just the chest, right and left. And forward and back. Good, and circle. We're going to reverse the direction. Good. Going down into Maya, down and out and in, down and out and in. Good. Switching to Maya, up and out and down, up and out and down. Adding the arms. Nice big undulation, chest comes forward, up, back, and releasing through the hip. And shake it out for a second. All right, so we're going to work a little bit on that sideways undulation and adding our sword with that, and then also some hip balancing, okay? So let's just start with that movement that we're going to be doing. So it's going to be a little bit like our Zoe Maya combo of Doom, right? Where we did kind of a half a Maya, right? The chest came over, the head came over, okay? We're just going to slow that down and smooth it out, okay? So I'm going to start by reaching out, bringing the hip up, out, and down, leaning the chest over, and then the head over. Very important, I want to end this movement centered over my right leg. So my weight is nice and even, okay? We don't want to reach all the way and extend out beyond that leg and lose our balance and fall to the side, okay? So we're planting that foot, okay? We're putting the hip on top of that, okay? The chest comes right over that leg as well. And then the head just relaxes into it. Okay, so I've got that nice straight line ending over that leg. All right, nice and balanced. So again, reaching the hip, up, out, down, chest, head. Good. Again, I'm getting that undulation coming up the side of the body. So hip, chest, head. Time, hip, chest, head. Good. Same thing on the other side. I'm starting with that foot on toe to bring the hip up, out, and then down onto flat foot. Bringing the chest over, again, to meet that. I'm not going past it. I'm stopping right over that leg, and then the head just relaxes into it. Again, weight centered here. We don't want to lose the balance by leaning over too far. So hip comes up, out, down, chest comes over, head just relaxes right into place. No extra accent needed or anything like that. We're just going to let it go with the flow. Okay? So hip, chest, head. Yeah. Hip, chest, head. Nice and centered. Hip, chest, head. Good. One more time. Hip, chest, head. Good. So we're going to add our sword to that. I'm going to be starting on the right side, and I'm going to start with my sword at hip level. Okay. So I'm just holding it nice and straight and flat. I've got one hand holding the hilt. I've got my other hand is just kind of guiding this other side. So I've got the sword actually resting on my thumb. Rest of my fingers are just open. Okay, you can also grab on the top if you'd like, depending on how heavy your sword is or how that's placed, whatever you're comfortable with. Okay, or if you'd like to have the open fingers on the bottom, the thumb on the top, you can do that as well. Thumb on the bottom, open fingers on the top, just as long as we're not breaking the cardinal rule of sword, which is closing your hand over the sharp edge. We want to make sure that wherever the hands are placed, that we're not covering up that sharp edge of the sword. Okay, we are maintaining that this is a real sword and that it will cut your fingers off. So, starting with the sword again at hip level, we're going to bring it up the side of the body. Okay. The closer you keep it to yourself, the cooler it's going to look. Much more dangerous. Danger. So much danger. And again, hip, chest, and then the head just relaxes right into place. Hip, chest, head. Good. Same thing on the other side. Nice and flat sword, right? However this other hand ends up, that you're comfortable with it and you feel secure. Starting with the hip, chest, and then the head just relaxes into it, nice and centered over the leg. Again, hip, chest, head. Try to keep it close to the body. Hip, chest, head. One more time. Hip, chest, head. Good. So we can kind of join up those two sides, right? Where I'm going to slide up one direction, let it settle down, slide up the other direction, and then bring it down. So slide up. Before I shift the weight back to my other foot, I'm going to bring the sword down, then I'm going to do my undulation. So leave all the weight centered on that left leg, drop the sword down to the right, undulate up, drop the sword, undulate up. Good. From the other side, let's do that. So I'm going to undulate up, drop it down, then shift the weight. Good. Excellent. Not too bad, right? Feeling pretty good with that? So the other thing we'll do is work on balancing that on the hip, okay? There are a couple different ways that we can balance our sword on the hip, all right? One way is we're gonna actually get it into our waist, okay? Which means that I am literally going for my waist. I'm not gonna balance it on the side of my hip. I'm gonna balance it right into that waist section. So I am actually above my hip bone, right below my rib cage, okay? So it's typically a lot higher up the body than most people expect, okay? But that's where you're gonna get that best balance point, is if you can get that sword right into that hip bone area, it's gonna be very secure on your hip, okay? If you're not comfortable with that, or if that's not working, the other thing that you can do is you can actually rest the sword onto the side of the pants, right? The more belts you have here to help keep it secure, the better it's going to be. But you can also balance it right there onto your hip using your clothing as the balance point, okay? If you're going to be balancing it to the waist, I definitely recommend having that skin contact. It's going to be easier to balance, less likely to slip, and also you're going to be able to feel it a lot easier. So you'll be able to tell sooner if that sword is going to start wiggling back and forth, and you'll be able to adjust your posture with that, okay, to prevent it from falling. As opposed to having clothing over it, you're less likely to feel that sword moving immediately, okay? So we're going to get ourselves balanced first, right? I'm gonna get my weight centered onto my left leg. Knee is nice and bent. The more bent my back leg is, the easier it's going to be for me to keep this level, okay? So my right foot is gonna be on the ball of the foot, just like I would be for my single hip pop, okay? We're very much in that position. And what you can also do to help balance the sword is I'm gonna lean my torso away from it as much as I can, okay? So my right hip is slightly up in this position, and my torso is leaning away from it. So again, using that balance point on your sword, right? Being able to visualize where that is, and we're gonna place it above the hip bone, right? So much higher up on the body than you might think, okay? So using that hip bone right in between the rib cage is where it's going to be most secure. All right, so you can see it's moving slightly, even just from me talking, right? My diaphragm is moving, so the sword is moving slightly, but it's still very secure right in that hip bone, okay? We're going to turn this just like our Chu turn, okay? So I'm using my left foot that's going to be planted on the ground with all my weight is my pivot point, okay? My right leg is the one that's powering the turn. That's what's turning my body around. And all I'm doing with my left foot is I'm lifting those toes slightly and pivoting on that heel, okay? Again, the more bent your back leg is, the easier it's going to be to maintain this level. It's going to be very important here that as we're doing this turn, that we're not bouncing up and down because that sword's going to fall right out, right? So we want to make sure we keep that bend. The bend in the back leg, right, is what's going to help us maintain this level without maintain the level without bouncing. Woo, that was way harder than it should have been. Anywho, all right, so back leg nice and bent, leaning away with the torso. Sword balanced into the hip bone, yes? We're gonna take this, maintaining that lean, maintaining the bend in the back leg. Nice small steps. The smaller the step, the easier it's gonna be. Good. If you feel the sword start to slip, put your hand on it, adjust it back to where it should be, okay? Don't let it fall. Even though they're not sharp, they're definitely still going to hurt you, okay? So much more important to have that hand on the sword than to let that sword fall, okay? We can do that. And just like that, through the miracle of television, I have a hip scarf, because then I realized if I'm going to show you how to balance this on your belt, I should probably be wearing something that the sword is actually going to balance on. So apart from using, right, the hip bone to balance, we can also balance the sword onto our costuming, okay? So again, finding that balance point on the sword. I'm going to use my left hip this time, so my right leg is nice and bent, holding all of my weight. Left foot is on the ball, leaning away with my torso, and we're getting that balanced right onto the knot of my hip scarf, okay? And again, keeping that back leg bent, nice and slow. We are turning to the side. The smaller the step, the easier it's going to be. Okay. So everybody just has their own personal preference, right? Some dancers prefer to balance it on the costuming. Some dancers prefer to balance it on the skin, okay? It's not right or wrong either way, it's just different ways of doing the exact same hip balance, okay? So whichever one feels more comfortable and secure to you, right? Go with that. That's what we want. We want to feel safe and secure with our sword balanced. We don't want to be worrying about it and feeling scared, right? While we're performing, we want to be comfortable and confident, okay? So we'll leave it there for today. We'll work on some more balancing in the next video, and yeah, hopefully I'll have some good news about our reopening soon. Fingers crossed, right? All right, ladies, thank you very much. Bye.